We are joined now by Wake Forest coach Dave Clawson, who is regaling me with stories from his vacation in Tuscany. Yes, Seinfeld fans, there are villas in Tuscany available for rent. But no, he's put me on to a restaurant called Cingheli Bianco, Austria Cingheli Bianco, and I'm going through the menu. You got me on the bistecca alla Fiorentina. That sounds amazing.
However it sounds, it tastes better. So it was a great trip and had our whole family there, and just as you would appreciate, Andy, the food was amazing. So that's the reason you go on vacation, primarily, is food.
How do you do that though? Because I don't have nearly as demanding a job as you, and I struggle on vacation disconnecting. And I heard you talking about this trip earlier and saying that you did basically disconnect, were in the moment with the fam, and did it the whole time. How do you do that?
It's probably the first year I did it, Andy. I just was with my daughter no longer lives with me. She's out, and so the time that you have as a family, the four of us, and then my brother and sister-in-law, and I think the time change allows it. So when you're that far ahead, time change, you can't really deal with problems in real time, and you just accept the fact that at the end of the day, whatever problems happened, you'll handle at the end of the day. And so to turn the ringer off on your phone and be present with your family and enjoy those moments, I think, when your kids get older, you wonder how many more of those trips you're going to have. So you try to suck every bit of juice out of them that you can.
Yeah, that is what is it, Ralph Waldo Emerson? That sucked the marrow out of life. By the way, we don't get a lot of Ralph Waldo Emerson references from our coaches that we interview, so I appreciate that. They teach that at Williams College, right?
They did, and I'm sure they teach it at Wake Forest. So we'll bring our own.
Do they teach it at Amherst, though? That's the question.
No, they still were. When they stole all of our books, a lot of them didn't make it over the mountain, so they're a little short in the library there.
And that is D3 Trash Talk with Dave Clawson. So you're in camp right now. This is a year where I think people still haven't gotten used to the program that you've put together at Wake Forest, because I hear people saying, well, they lost A.T. Perry, they lost all these guys. Sam Hartman's at Notre Dame. But I look at your roster, and even after the injury the other day to Donovan Green, like, you still have three receivers who caught at least 39 passes last year that are going to be ready to go. You've got really old offensive linemen. How do you keep your program as old as you have?
I mean, when we first got here, we just started with the philosophy of, we knew we weren't going to be able to recruit with the Clemsons and the Florida States and some of the other people we have to compete with and beat to be successful. And we can't chase their model. We had to have our own model. And our model certainly revolved around recruiting players that we thought could stick at Wake Forest academically and value our degree. We still probably redshirt a greater percentage of players maybe than any other Power 5 program in the country. And again, it was get old and stay old. And so we bit the bullet those first 2 years. And I think we've been, rewarded ever since then. Like last year, everyone talked about, well, we're going to lose Sam in his fifth year, and we lose a seventh and two sixth-year offensive linemen, and you lose a fifth-year Torian Perry. And I looked at our starting offense the other day in walkthroughs, and I'm like, we're old again. We have 25 years of experience on our starting O-line. Every player who starts for us, except one person, has been at our program for at least 4 years. So I think we'll start one third-year guy on offense on the O-line. And those aren't necessarily the weaknesses, because as we've won and as we've built over $120 million of football facilities, we've recruited better. So we're graduating players that have a lot of experience, but I think we're slowly replacing them with guys that probably came here with a little bit of a higher talent level. And so if we can retain them, I think we'll keep getting better.
You took the job and told Ron Wellman, the AD at the time, that this was going to happen, that you were going to have to take some lumps early on. Do you know if could you get away with that now? Would a coach be allowed at the Power 5 level to do that?
I don't think so, Andy. I mean, when I was offered the job, they offered me a 5-year contract, and I said I wouldn't take it unless I had 6 years, because I looked at the roster and I didn't see any way that we could be competitive until year 3. Because I saw what graduated, what left. I looked at the recruiting classes, and I thought by the 3rd year we could be competitive. And I just said, I don't want to go through those first 2 years and only have 3 years on my contract. So, I said, I don't need more money. I don't need this. I need to know after those first 2 years, I can still tell recruits I have 4 years left. And fortunately, Ron was supportive. And I think the model is kind of built around Wake Forest as an institution. We have high graduation rates. We have high retention rates as an institution. And I needed to make that be part of our football program. And fortunately, we have. I mean, I said it at Media Day, even in this day of age of free agency and tampering and name, image, likeness, people want to talk about what we lost. I mean, we had 6 to 8 players, Andy, that were offered between $150,000 and $500,000 by other schools, and all those guys chose to stay. And a major reason is they want a Wake Forest degree. So we're still running a college football program here that's centered around retention and graduation, and we're going to work that model as long as we possibly can.
How does that conversation go with those guys when they have somebody offer them? And you said it was a case where they're not in the transfer portal. They're just being offered this, and it would violate the tampering rules. I know you've said you'd rather it be no rules than what it is now. But how do the conversations with those players go? Do they come to you when they get the text message or the DM, or do they tell you after they've made a decision?
Well, of the 8 of them, 7 of them shared it after the fact. And they just said it almost out of, hey, coach, I don't want you to hear it from anybody else. I just want you to know that this institution reached out to me in this way, through this alumni or this local trainer. And, they were talking this amount of money, but I want to get my degree from Wake, but I just thought you should know. One of the players met with me and told me what was going on. And it was
As it was going on.
As it was going on. And I just said, it's a lot of money. And if your entire decision is going to be based on, how can I get the most amount of money in the next calendar year? I said, you probably have to go. But why did you pick Wake Forest? What's the value of our degree? You've spent 3 years here to try to get a Wake Forest degree, and you're 2 semesters away. Yes, there's a benefit financially of leaving, but there's also a cost of leaving. And are you really willing to give up a $450,000 education that you've worked hard for 4 years to get a 1-year payment of $250,000? And
Right. Because this person would be leaving without the degree.
he'd be leaving without a degree. And so a lot of these players that stayed, they're within a year of their degree. And they came here because they valued what our degree means and what it'll lead to when they're done with football. And again, all of them except one just stayed without even telling me, and shared with it after the fact, which I really appreciated. They didn't try to leverage it. They knew they wanted to stay. They knew they wanted to graduate. And I think because of it, we'll have a good football team again this year.
We'll be right back with more from Wake Forest coach Dave Clawson. But first, I want to tell you about Gametime. Bunch of great college football games coming up. You may want to go to some of them, but they might be sold out. How do you get your tickets? Well, you get them through Gametime. And it's not just college football. It could be the NFL, could be a concert, a comedy show, whatever you need, Gametime's got it. Here's how it works. Let's say you want to go see Florida State play LSU in Orlando on Sunday of week 1. You open your Gametime app. You scroll to Orlando. You scroll to Florida State football. You tap that, and then it shows you a bunch of potential tickets that you could buy. The prices are right there. You know exactly what you're looking at. You click on a ticket, and then all of a sudden you've got a view inside the stadium from the seat that you'd be sitting in. Move your phone to the left, move your phone to the right. It's like you are turning your head inside the stadium as you look at the field. It's incredible. And then when you got to that point, you are only one tap away from buying your tickets. And it's so easy. You get them, you can transfer them to a friend, use them yourself. Gametime makes everything easy, painless, and stress-free. So the next time you're looking for great tickets and you want to find exactly what you're going to see in the stadium, know exactly what you're getting, and be able to do it in a stress-free environment, download the Gametime app. Use the code STAPLES for $20 off your first purchase. Staples is the code, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but it's that easy. Just download the Gametime app now. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Probably makes you feel good about how you've recruited, I would think, because you judge those people correctly.
Yeah, and again, I'm not surprised by it. I've always said this, that we're not going to be the highest bidders. We have a collective, and we are participating in what is the new era of college football. But if we don't provide an experience here, and if our players don't build relationships here, that if we don't have a reason to keep players here other than the financials, we will probably be in trouble. And so to me, it was very rewarding that as much as they want the Wake Forest degree, I think a lot of the reasons they stayed are just the relationships they've made here, the connections, the friendships, starting with the group and then wanting to finish with that group. And that has to be our secret sauce. And so far, we've been able to maintain it. And that's certainly going to be the challenge going forward, is that we are participating in this new era. It's not like we're not doing anything with it, and we have a collective. But I still think that our model has to center around graduation, relationships, and providing an experience for our players that they don't want to leave.
Now, how do you handle that when you get knowledge that somebody's reached out to one of your players? And I know you mentioned previously it wasn't anybody else in the ACC, but do you call the NCAA? Do you turn them in?
Andy, with what's going on, I mean, for people to even pretend they don't know it's existing, there's no point. If they want to come here and talk to me, I'm happy to talk to them. But nothing is happening with that across the country, and that's why I just say let's eliminate the rules.
Mhm.
Let's just clean the book. Let's not pretend these rules exist, because the only thing worse than not having a rule is having a rule that's unenforceable or you're not willing to enforce. And that's what's going on now. And I'm not complaining about it. It is what it is. I expect those things to happen. I know they're happening. And, you just have to build your program in a way that you're giving players a reason to stay other than the bottom line finances.
I imagine it. We've talked about this before, that the people who want to come to Wake Forest, it's a self-selecting sample of people who would like a Wake Forest degree, feel like they can compete academically at Wake Forest. Do you think that helps in terms of when these things come along, that they are looking at a little bit bigger picture?
There's no question, Andy. I mean, if we didn't have the quality of our education, the quality of our school, the quality of our faculty, if we didn't have those things, this would be I'm sure it would be a more scary proposition. But we're a top 30 ranked national university. We have very intimate classroom settings, and the players that we get, they want that. It's part of the reason they pick us. And so if they get these offers from, a large state school that they're going to have a classroom of 300, there's more to it than just the bottom line, whatever the NIL offer is. And so that's why it's important that we recruit players who want what we are, that value what we are, because if they value what we are in the way in, hopefully that'll be a reason they stay. And again, we're never going to bat 100%. Nobody ever does. And I'm sure at some point we'll lose an underclassman. But to me, the goal is to minimize those losses. And if we get the right people coming in that pick us for the right reason, they'll stay for those reasons.
So let's talk about your quarterback, because everybody knows Sam Hartman. He felt like he was there for a million years. He's got one more year in college, but he's going to do it at Notre Dame. Mitch Griffis, who we saw start the season opener last year when Sam was injured. What does Mitch bring to the table, and how important was it to keep the kind of the pipeline going? Because Mitch was going to year 4 and probably felt like he had earned the shot here.
Absolutely. And, with Sam gave us 5 years. And Sam was very upfront and honest that Coach, I want to go to the NFL. But if these crazy numbers that people are throwing out there are real, I'm crazy to not at least test that market. And so that happened with him. And we had confidence in Mitch. And what's happened here, Andy, is we had John Wolford, right? And as soon as we lost John after we beat Texas A&M in the Belk Bowl in 17, people think you're going to fall off a cliff. And then you have Sam Hartman and Jamie Newman. And then when Jamie left, we were picked really low. And then Sam Hartman. And we have that same confidence in Mitch. Mitch has been here. He's now in his 4th year. When Sam left, which we knew he was, we didn't even look at the transfer market. We didn't even consider bringing a transfer in. We've seen what Mitch can do on the practice field for 3 years. And, there's always an adjustment when you're the starter. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be smooth sailing from day one. But there is no doubt that he can be a high-level ACC quarterback, just the way that Sam was, just the way that Jamie was, and just the way that John Wolford was.
And so he starts in a new era of ACC football where you're not in divisions anymore. I imagine when you saw how your 3 permanent opponents worked out, it probably looked pretty nice because you got nice local rivalries. But
what's a local rivalry?
Well, Duke's pretty close. Virginia Tech's not far from you either. That's an easy drive.
Local rivalry. That name may go away in the next 10 years.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, that's true. We're recording this at full disclosure, 9:30 in the morning. The Cal Board of Regents will be meeting in 29 minutes. I don't know if an ACC offer's on the table, but at this point, I have no clue what's going to happen. So.
I love my pay grade, Andy. So
exactly. That's why I wasn't throwing all the realignment questions at you.
No, we were excited that we can drive an hour and a half to Durham, and Virginia Tech is about 2 hours up the road, and we recruit a lot in Atlanta. So Georgia Tech. So those were all, good games and ones we look forward to. And, it'll be a different era now that we're not in the Atlantic, although it seems.
I was going to say, I looked at your schedule this year. You still get Clemson, Florida State, and NC State. You lost nothing from that competitively.
No, but I think if you look at, the last 5-10 years since I've been in the league, clearly the Atlantic has been a lot more competitive than the Coastal. Even last year, I think 6 of the 7 Atlantic teams made bowls and 3 of the Coastal. And so you would think over the long term that, maybe that will help us a little bit in terms of the schedule. But, anytime you try to plan these things in advance, right, you schedule a team that, 6 years in advance and, they're 2-10, and then you play them and they're 10-2.
Yeah.
You schedule a team to help your strength of schedule and they're going the bowls, and then you play them and they're not as good. So there's always an ebb and flow to college football. And our goal has always been to try to build a consistent program, that the ebbs and flows are less severe.
So you and my friend Bruce Feldman have had some conversations, and Bruce is an excellent reporter, but for those who don't know, he's also his son's Pee Wee football coach. And you've done something for him that you guys don't do for many people, because you've got the slow mesh where quarterback and the running back are meshed together for what seems like forever. I don't know how they do it with all those defensive linemen coming at them. You revealed some of the secrets to the slow mesh to Bruce to use in 9-year-old football, and apparently it is dominating in Southern California. What made you decide that was okay when everybody else is looking for the secret and you said, no, we can't do that?
Well, Bruce spent some time at the University of Albany where I started my career. So I almost feel that we're, we share a partial degree together. So he's almost like an alumni brother. In full disclosure, Bruce watched our film and got that on our own.
Oh, very nice.
I always say that we are in the information gathering business, not sharing business. So I'm actually getting information from Bruce. He sends me clips from his 9-year-old sons of what things they're doing with the slow mesh. And I instantly send those to Warren Ruggiero, our offensive coordinator. So there's a good chance we've incorporated more of what Bruce is doing than he's incorporated what we're doing.
Oh, I love it. Well, and what I can't wait, because remember when Mike Leach got to Texas Tech, and 4 years later, half the high school coaches in Texas are running the air raid. When when the slow mesh is dominating Southern California high school football, like when Modern Day is running a slow mesh in 5 years, it's going to be a tremendous experience.
Yeah, I mean, history will say Bruce Feldman was a great writer for The Athletic and other media outlets, and that he is the father of the slow mesh on the West Coast.
It's great. Yeah. How does that work with you guys? You talk about not being the information sharing business. Some coaches that they're kind of open books on that. Some are a lot more closed. Like uh, for instance, you couldn't get much information on the Baylor offense back in the day. Now it's kind of everybody's running it. But for you guys, how do you make that decision of we're going to be a little more guarded about who we talk to about this?
Again, not to dig up ancient history, Andy, but I probably was as open as anybody. Come visit us, high school coaches, college coaches. We'll share. It's
Yeah.
football. And, unfortunately, my first 3 years here,
Yeah.
we dealt with a really bad security breach, that people had details about our game plans.
Mhm.
And, you start looking and saying, okay, it's great that you're open, but are you really doing what's best for your own players and your own program? And so I think the two things that have helped us is it's what we're doing is unique. And since we started doing this, I've never had an offensive coach leave. So,
Wow.
since we started doing this in 2017, our entire offensive staff has stayed the same. And then Kevin Higgins this year stepped into an off the field role, and we hired Audie Confessor. So we haven't had a full time coach in our system who is then left for another job that knows the details of what we do. And so a lot of times these things branch out that, obviously Mike Leach has a whole tree
Yeah.
coaches that work for him from, Dana Holgerson to Sonny Dykes to Lincoln Riley, right? And so that's how these things get spread. And, we've been able to stay a little bit more in a silo because we've had the same offensive coordinator, running back coach, and O-line coach for 10 years. Kevin Higgins was the receiver coach for
Yep.
9 years. So we haven't had this expert at what we do take it somewhere else and share the details of it.
So now that I know how Bruce did it, I'm happy about this. I was going to ask you. My son's middle school team is installing a new offense this year. I have confidence in the coaching staff, of course, but if things start to not go so well, I know I can watch a bunch of Wake Forest film now, compare notes with Bruce, and we may be able to get the slow mesh going in Florida, and then you have a new recruiting ground.
There you go. And then it's you have Bruce Feldman as the father of the slow mesh in California and Andy Staples as the father of the slow mesh in Florida.
Well, and
We'll,
listen, I
we'll
know
have
Wake Forest. Wake
we'll have
Forest
an
is.
annual convention together that you, Bruce, and I will get together, and you and I will be in charge of the food and where we go, Andy.
I love it. I love it. Well, Wake Forest has always done very well in North Florida with quarterbacks. So if we can get this going, we may have somebody for you in about 6 or 7 years. So
Yep. Maybe whatever restaurant we pick, if we make that public, who knows? Maybe they can provide NIL for our quarterback every year.
that's I got some
We're
thoughts.
we're onto something here. This is third level thinking.
That's it. Yeah, we're playing 14-dimensional chess right now. Dave Clawson, thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate you having me on.